Today, we're diving into one of the most critical and honestly one of the most misunderstood parts of any project, the people. We're going to demystify stakeholder management by putting two very different but very powerful approaches head to head. So let me ask you a question. When a massive project just completely goes off the rails, what do you think is the number one culprit? Is it the tech, the budget, the schedule? Believe it or not, the answer might surprise you. More often than not, the thing that sinks a project isn't a technical glitch. It's a human one. You see, managing the expectations, the influence, and the engagement of everyone involved, that is the real secret sauce to success. And that brings us to the official term for all this, project stakeholder management. It sounds a little corporate, I know, but it's really just the playbook for solving that people problem. It's all about figuring out who matters, what they want, and then coming up with a real strategy to keep them plugged in and on your side from start to finish. So here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with why people are so important. Then we'll jump into two different management worlds. After that, we'll break down their playbooks, clear up a really critical distinction, and then wrap up by helping you figure out which approach makes sense for your project. All right, let's dig right into section 1. Why do people derail projects? Well, it usually boils down to a few key things, right? You've got conflicting objectives, where different stakeholders are literally pulling in opposite directions. You have unclear requirements that just lead to chaos and rework. And then there's a simple lack of buy-in. I mean, when people don't feel heard or valued, they can become roadblocks, sometimes without even meaning to. So yeah, managing these human dynamics isn't just a nice to have, it's absolutely essential. Which brings us to section 2. To really get a handle on the two different ways to solve this, I want you to think about a metaphor. Picture the traditional project manager as an architect. They need a perfect, detailed, fixed blueprint before anyone can even think about laying a single brick. Now, contrast that with the Agile manager, who's much more like a gardener. They plant a seed, they nurture it, and they adapt their approach as the plant grows and the environment changes. And this really gets to the heart of the philosophical divide. The traditional or plan-driven approach is all about predictability. The goal is to create a masterpiece of a plan and then execute it flawlessly. The Agile approach, though, it's totally different. It's driven by collaboration. The plan is expected to change based on constant feedback because the main goal isn't sticking to the plan. It's adapting to deliver real value continuously. And now for the main event, here in Section 3, the Management Playbook. We're going to look at the 4 core processes of stakeholder management and see exactly how our architect and our gardener tackle each one. These 4 steps, identify, plan, manage, and monitor, are the absolute bedrock of any good stakeholder strategy. It doesn't matter which methodology you're using. Think of this as the framework for everything we're about to cover. First things first. It sounds almost ridiculously obvious, right? But you can't manage people if you don't even know who they are. So, step 1 is always to identify every single person or group who has a stake in how your project turns out. And right away, we see a massive difference. The traditional approach treats this like a formal one-time event right at the beginning. You create a big document, a stakeholder register, and that's that. Agile, on the other hand, sees this as something that never stops. Stakeholders are involved from day one, and their needs and ideas are woven directly into the project's living, breathing backlog. So let's check out a classic tool from the traditional playbook, the power/interest grid. Imagine we're building a new booking system for a car rental company. You'd map everybody out. Someone with low power and low interest, you just kind of monitor them. But what about the CEO? Well, she's got high power and high interest. The grid tells you loud and clear, you have to manage that relationship very, very closely. Okay, so you know who everybody is. The next logical step is to figure out how you're actually going to engage with them. You need a strategy. Our traditional architect will document a very formal and often static plan. It spells out exactly who gets what information and when. But our Agile gardener does something totally different. They build engagement right into the rhythm of the project. The strategy isn't a document. It's a series of collaborative events, like sprint reviews, where stakeholders are active players, not just people waiting for an email update. You know, a plan is totally useless if it just sits in a drawer. This next part is all about action. It's about putting that strategy to work, communicating, solving problems, and actively managing those human relationships. The real key difference here is all about the flow of information. In the traditional world, the project manager often acts as a kind of gatekeeper, managing expectations through formal updates. In the Agile world, there are no gatekeepers. The team and the stakeholders talk directly, and feedback gets folded in immediately and constantly. And you can't just set it and forget it, right? This final process is about constantly checking in. How are things going? Is your strategy actually working? Are the relationships healthy? Do you need to pivot and try something new? And once again, the difference is just crystal clear. The traditional approach leans on formal data, things like reports and surveys. The Agile approach, however, is all about direct human feedback. The team and the stakeholders get together in meetings like retrospectives to talk about what's working and what's not, and they make small adjustments as they go. Okay, on to section 4, and this is a big one because I want to clear up something that a lot of people get mixed up. Many people think stakeholder management is just a fancy way of saying communication. It is not. This table breaks it down perfectly. Communication management, that's all about the flow of information. Making sure the right report gets to the right person. But stakeholder management, that is about the engagement of people. The goal isn't just to inform them, it's to build trust, to gain their genuine support. It's about relationships, not just reports. Which brings us to our final section. So far, we've covered the why and the how. Now it's time to bring all of this into your world. So after all of this, what's the verdict? Who's better, the architect or the gardener? Well, the truth is that is the completely wrong question to ask. There is no one-size-fits-all better method. The right choice depends entirely on your project's context, your company's culture, and just how much uncertainty you're dealing with. And so, I'll just leave you with this one last thought. Take a hard look at the work you're doing right now. Is it a well-defined blueprint, like building a bridge where following the plan is everything? Or is it more like a garden, where you know what you want to grow, but you expect the path to change along the way? Your answer to that question will tell you everything you need to know about building the right strategy for your stakeholders. Thanks for joining me.